Hey guys, what's up? My name's Valerie and welcome to my channel. In today's video, I wanted to go into more detail on my bootcamp experience. I often get into conversations with aspiring software developers who are considering how they can learn the skills that are needed to get into this industry. And if you do find me on LinkedIn, you will see that I actually attended the General Assembly Coding Bootcamp based in Toronto, because that's where I live. And so I do often get asked, what was it like? How did you pay for it? Did you end up finding a job right away? There are a lot of common questions that I get asked, and I figured I would include a video where I get to shed some light on my experience and answer some of those commonly asked questions. Okay, so just to set the stage before we get into the more granular parts of this video, for anyone who's been through a bootcamp of some kind during their learning path, you'll understand that a bootcamp is pretty much just taking a bulk of information into a curriculum that is carried over a compressed period of time. So in comparison to 4-year university degrees or 2-year college diplomas, coding bootcamps will typically take you anywhere between 3 to 6 months on average, where you're getting pumped with a large bulk of information that will be useful for you in the industry of your choice. So in the case of General Assembly, they don't only offer coding bootcamps for software development, but they also offer bootcamps for data science and design as well, as far as I know. They may also offer other programs, and they also do other types of workshops and part-time programs, but specifically the program that I went with was the Web Development Immersive Program, which was a 3-month full-time coding bootcamp program that I pursued so that I could learn the skills that I needed to make a successful transition into software development. My experience with General Assembly. So I did General Assembly during July 2018 up until the end of September 2018. It ended up spilling a bit into October 2018 because we presented our final projects, and then we had some networking events that also happened during that time. And my overall experience was a very positive one. I typically tell anyone who asks that I had a great experience with the General Assembly Bootcamp. It was incredibly challenging and overwhelming at times, but overall, my 3 months with General Assembly Toronto were awesome. I really enjoyed the learning environment, and the instructors were great, and it was awesome because I love summer, and my bootcamp happened during the summertime, so I spent a lot of time downtown during the summer, which was a huge plus. And thankfully, during that time, the Toronto Film Festival was also happening, so that was a plus for me too. I love being just where the action is, and I don't want to speak about the bootcamp as though I wasn't there for the actual learning aspect, because I'm definitely going to be talking a bit more about that. But my experience with General Assembly was something that I think about a lot because I was at a very pivotal time in my life. I had quit a full-time job to pursue a 3-month full-time bootcamp, and it was grueling, it was challenging, it was intense. If you guys think of the word bootcamp, there's a reason why they coined that name for this type of learning model and for the type of structure that it has. So as positive as the experience was for me, it was also very, very challenging because the adjustment that I needed to make was beyond anything you will ever consider when you're making a decision to go back to school. Day to day, class started at 10. we'd have like a 2-hour lecture, and then we typically break for lunch at about noon, and then lunch would usually be about an hour, and at around 1 p.m., 1:30, we would start our work period. So the afternoon was really us working on our homework. We would sometimes collaborate with classmates to work on some assignments, and the afternoon instructors would also be there for support, so we'd be able to ask them questions. They'd guide us through some of the things that we were having difficulty with, and then there were some days where we would have whiteboard sessions. So the instructors would sit us down and they walk us through a problem, maybe a few problems if there was time, and we would do sort of this thing where we would have the opportunity for interview prep, and technical interview prep in particular, because that's some of the most challenging stuff that developers face, is technical interviews and how to do a whiteboard session during a technical interview. So that was also a huge focus during the 3 months that I had at General Assembly. We also had a career coach on site who basically was there to guide us through our transition from General Assembly into the real world as new developers. So she would dedicate time to sitting down with us one-on-one. We talked to her about our goals and just about some of the things that we wanted to hone in on, so that once boot camp was over, we were going to be ready to go on a very intentional job search and land our first jobs. I personally found the career coaching to be very helpful. It gave me insight into, just how I was going to go about my life as a new developer, and my transition into the tech industry was going to require a lot of hard work, and she was there to help us with that. She was there to basically give us the perspective that we were going to have to put in the work to get the outcome, and that was incredibly helpful for me, and it provided me with the perspective that I needed. Towards the end of the 3 months, probably 2 weeks shy of the end of the 3 months, that's when we started to go into final project mode, where we grouped together with other members of our class to build a full-scale web application of our choice. And basically those 2 weeks were spent just working heavily to flesh out this project so that it could be presented to the other cohorts at the time, and also our instructors and other members of General Assembly. This time was really exciting for me personally, because I knew that coming out of it, I was going to have this big project to form a part of my portfolio, and it was also exciting because I knew that I really had learned a lot. By that point, working with my other group members, I realized, wow, like I actually understand how a web application can be built from start to finish, and that encouraged me to keep learning, and it also made me really believe that I could be a professional software developer. So at the time that I attended the General Assembly Bootcamp, I learned Ruby and Ruby on Rails. That was the framework of choice at the time. One thing that a lot of bootcamp organizations do is they form their curriculum based on the industry standards and demands of the time. So at the time that I was attending General Assembly, Ruby on Rails was considered a very viable option for new bootcamp grads who were looking for jobs afterwards. I know now General Assembly has changed their curriculum to include other frameworks and libraries such as React, Python, and Django. So it definitely is sort of a moving tide depending on when you register for your bootcamp. The curriculum will be based on what seems to be the standard in the industry. The toughest thing that I learned, probably object-oriented programming. Yeah, like I actually didn't think I could do a career in web development, because I was like, no, this isn't gonna work. What I would have done differently is probably get more sleep, do more of my homework on time, and plan my finances better. Those are probably all things, well, no, those are definitely all things I would have done differently had I had the opportunity to do everything over again, because I did not do a good job of organizing my time. I didn't do a good job of managing my finances during the time that I was unemployed, because I quit my job to pursue my career transition in software development and to attend the 3-month bootcamp full time. So I definitely would have managed my finances better. And I think just taken more seriously the fact that it was a full-time immersive program, which meant that I shouldn't have had so much time to do other things, but I made time to do other things, which was at the expense of my learning experience and getting my homework done on time. So in retrospect, those are things I definitely would have reconsidered. What I wished was available at the time was probably just more of a clear segue from graduation to the job hunt. Because I think, once graduation was done, General Assembly made the attempt to ensure that we had the opportunity to do some networking after graduation, which we did. I mean, there was the opportunity to meet employers in the area who were looking for new talent. But once all of that networking was done, it's like at least I'll speak for myself. I felt like I was in the deep end at that point, because it is tough to navigate a new industry that you don't know very much about, and also the pressure of finding a job and presenting yourself to employers. Even though you've been given the resources to do certain things, I think the reality of it is daunting and overwhelming, and I definitely was overwhelmed. Finding a job when you are fresh out of a boot camp learning experience is in no way an easy feat. I know sometimes it may be painted to look that way, but do not believe the hype. It is grueling, it is tough, it is uncomfortable, and I think looking back, I definitely feel like there could have been more of a segue between graduation and embarking on this uphill battle to assert myself in a new industry. What I have heard from bootcamp grads who have attended General Assembly after me is that the grad support and the job search support system has changed. So I mean, I don't know too much about that, but definitely do your research. I don't think it can be exclusively looked at from my lens, because I attended General Assembly at a different time. We're almost going on to 3 years at this point, so definitely the landscape has changed. The experiences of grads have changed. So I am happy to see that. I think it's great. Just the way in which the process has worked and the streamline from boot camps into big companies has become a huge asset and a huge sort of way to entice people to attend General Assembly, because now they have that peace of mind knowing that they could potentially be working for, a pretty big company in the tech industry once they're done their boot camp. This wasn't something we had as much of when I attended General Assembly, but to see the growth in that is pretty spectacular. It took me a total of 2 years to find my first job with a company in the tech industry as a software developer. I personally do not regret the fact that it took me that long, in large part because I wasn't in a rush. At the beginning, I was in a rush to find a job. I felt the pressure because I had kind of made the resolve with myself to find my first software developer job within a month of graduation, which looking back now I realize was incredibly unreasonable, especially now that I've gained more knowledge on what the job hunt is like as a software developer. It takes a while to get a job as a software developer, particularly if you're coming from an inexperienced background. So that was not realistic. Now what I realize is it is important for you to take your time when I came to a point in my job hunt that I realized that I wasn't experienced enough for a lot of employers to take me seriously, I took a step back and I realized that it might be good measure for me to step away from the job hunt for now, take more time to teach myself some additional fundamental concepts that will make me more employable. And then when I feel I'm confident enough and ready, I can go back into the job hunt with more force. So it took me 2 years, not because I was applying to jobs back to back to back and just hitting the wall every time. It took me 2 years because I purposely slowed myself down. I purposely took a break and I said, okay, let me take a breath. Let me just relax and let me enjoy this ride for what it is, because it is very stressful. It is very difficult, but I decided that I wasn't going to let that get me down. And rather than force myself into this time crunch, I was going to take a breath and be like, okay, I get it. I'm not experienced enough. I don't have enough knowledge. I don't have, years of practice under my belt. So I'm going to take time to actually focus on cultivating for myself the type of career that I want. So that's when I started looking at what was in demand. I started reading more job postings and studying job descriptions to understand what it was that big companies, medium companies, and small companies were looking for in the way of software development skills. I took those and I basically just combined them to form what I thought was going to be an ideal career development path for me. It ended up being that I wanted to be a front-end developer. So I focused on React and I focused on strengthening my JavaScript skills. And that is where, the additional time was useful for me, because I was able to spend more time learning and teaching myself, so that when I did re-enter the job hunt, I was more confident knowing that I actually had skills that employers wanted. General Assembly has definitely impacted me positively as a career professional and as a software developer. I think going through something as intense as a 3-month bootcamp where you're in an immersive learning environment and you're doing this full time, it's definitely no small thing. I think looking back, I realized that even though what I do specifically as a software developer now is not necessarily the bulk of what I learned in my bootcamp experience, being a bootcamp grad has taught me that I can successfully learn new things. I can successfully apply new knowledge, and I can pick up things a lot quicker than I thought. It's also helped me with my confidence. It's helped me with the fact that I can step into a new career path, I can step into a new environment, and I can pretty much own it, I can own it. I can feel like I have the leverage to approach employers, to approach other members of the software development community, and to network and socialize in a way that can be beneficial to my own growth, both as a career professional, but also as a human being. So there's been a lot that's come from that experience. The professional development that they equipped us with and the networking experience that they equipped us with have been helpful even up until this present moment in my career. And I know that it will continue to be helpful for me. So I don't know if everyone can say the same thing, but I know for myself, I do not regret my experience with General Assembly one bit. It's been a hugely helpful boost for me, and it's given me sort of that push to know that I can, walk into a room and I can just attack a problem without feeling like it's impossible or like I can't overcome it. So that's been a huge win for me. Payment. This is a big one for a lot of people. It was a big one for me, and it was the reason why it actually took me so long to decide if a bootcamp was the right choice for me. I think it is the pivot point in a lot of people's decision making, because If you can afford to pay thousands of dollars for a bootcamp, then great, you're sold. But if you can't, then that's when all the questions start to swim in your head about whether or not this is an ideal option for you. Do you pay the thousands of dollars, or do you go to Udemy and pay $15 for a useful course on whatever web development skills you're trying to learn, right? I am a huge supporter of Udemy. I love the variety that Udemy offers, and I've definitely paid more than my fair share on Udemy for their course offerings as well. But I would say that thousands of dollars for a bootcamp, while it may not be up everyone's alley, can definitely be worth the investment. I am based in Toronto. I did the General Assembly bootcamp in Toronto. At the time, I paid about 11,000 Canadian dollars, if I remember correctly, just over 11,000. But I didn't pay the whole thing up front. I paid a lump sum of the whole portion. I paid a smaller lump sum up front, and then I financed the rest through Finance It. So for those of you who go to the General Assembly website, and if you're particularly looking for the General Assembly campus in Toronto, they do mention this in the cost section. So they talk about options to finance the like a portion of your bootcamp cost in the form of a loan. There are various other options that bootcamps will offer, but at the time I felt that the finance option was the best for me. So I ended up paying, I think it was $3,500 as a lump sum, and then I financed the rest of it. So that ended up being done in a way where they give you a grace period. I think it was about 6 months, and that way you have the opportunity to go through your bootcamp process without worrying about paying anything back. And then when you're done your bootcamp, hopefully employed, which I wasn't, but hopefully employed, that's the goal. You then are gainfully employed to a point where you can pay the loan in monthly installments. So I think that option definitely does open up some flexibility for people who don't have the immediate funds to pay an entire bootcamp fee up front. For me, it did work, but one thing I do want to say is that when I was done my bootcamp and I wasn't employed, it definitely was a struggle to pay this loan because I didn't have a regular paycheck. And I would say that once you do get employed, hopefully you do start to earn an income that is feasible for you to pay back the loan in larger lump sums, because the finance rates, in my opinion, are a little high. So what I've done now that I am gainfully employed, I have taken it upon myself to throw larger lump sum payments at the loan so I can pay it down a lot faster. Because the intention is for the loan to be active for a while so that the interest will build up, and of course that's how they're able to capitalize off that. So I would, if you're going down the finance route, definitely look ahead into ways that you can pay down the loan as fast as possible so that you're not on the hook for years and years and years. Okay, so I think that does it for the questions. If you found this information at all helpful, please feel free to leave me a thumbs up. If there are any questions or discussions you want to start in the comments, I would love to read those below. I also did a sit-down interview with the Tech Rally where I go over my bootcamp experience a little bit, and then I also talk about my overall developer journey. So I will leave a link to that video in my description if you're interested. You may find information that I mentioned in that interview that I did not mention on this video, so that could also help you if you're looking for more insight. If you made it this far in the video, I absolutely appreciate you for watching, and I will see you all later.